Hello everyone. So now we come to the biggest project of all as we continue to improve the farmhouse we recently moved into. The project amounts to a complete remodelling in front of the house, but the main motivation was to get rid of a barn that was liable to fall down if we didn't take it down, and to replace that with a carport and a workshop. In our case we needed planning permission because the buildings were going to be in front of the house. My guess is that that requirement is to stop people building in their front gardens right up to the edge of the street. For us though, the house is sideways onto the lane, that's in grey on this site plan, so it didn't seem so relevant, and we were basically replacing a building that was already there. But rules are rules, and so we went through the planning process, and eventually came out the other side with an approval, along with some conditions. We were required to have an ecological survey, which we did. No signs of bats were found, which was one of the main questions, and we already knew that swallows had nested in the old barn during the summer, and it was quite nice having them around. The new building was required to have some measures to support both of those species. The work needed was going to be quite wide-ranging, but we found a family firm who were willing to do most of it, including demolition, landscaping, concrete base for the new buildings and a new driveway. They started with the demolition, and the site clearance was made easier by our helpful farmer neighbours who took the rubble to build up a farm track elsewhere. Eventually it was all cleared, and to save us some of the mud, the builders put in a temporary surface for parking over Christmas. Then came the concrete base, with access by the concrete lorry made all the more difficult by our limited access down a narrow lane. After that was more landscaping, including some new steps up to the front door. Previously, and rather strangely, the front door had only been accessible via the side path. A new cable duct was put in under that side path. There was power in the old barn, but we needed more capacity to support an electric car charger, which was one of the planning conditions, as well as being something we needed. The first part of the drive down to the lane was going to be concrete, so that was next, and meant that while the concrete set, our only access to the house was across the field at the back. Then came another lorry with a base coat of tarmac. That, as well as the top coat of resin, are permeable to rainwater, so we didn't need to put in new drainage. While we waited for our new buildings to come, we made use of the builder's mini digger, with their encouragement, and did some levelling in the field where vegetable patches will go, as well as levelling the new site for the greenhouse. The old site had proved rather vulnerable to the wind. It's a slow process when you've not done it before with a mini digger, but I'm sure I would improve with practice. On the day of the building's arrival, the lorry arrived at a rather uncivilised 7 a.m, having driven most of the night. After a recce, the driver thought he could get down our lane. We had a helpful neighbour with tractor and trailer ready to offload him if not, but he did make it down to our entrance, although I think the lane ended up a bit wider than it started. Over the next 2 days, 2 guys assembled 2 wooden buildings, which we felt was quite a feat. After that, a firm of electricians ran cables through the duct and installed power, lighting and the car charger, as well as making sure that our sewage plant still had power. We volunteered to finish off the trench for the cable to the sewage plant ourselves, since the ground was completely waterlogged at the time. After weeks of heavy rain, it's still no better. All that rain was helpful in one way though. It showed that the brick base on which the workshop was built was not watertight, so we set to with plenty of bitumen paint inside and out, and also improved the way the rain runs off the walls on the outside. We'd planned to install insulation in the new workshop ourselves, so had supplies of Celotex insulation and plywood delivered. The ceiling was the hard bit, but by the end of it we knew what we were doing and worked out some techniques. The walls were easier, and once they were done the electricians came back to fit lights and sockets. We'll be insulating the floor too once it's dried out, so there's still a pile of insulation and flooring boards to be dealt with. And finally, on a rare dry day, the builders came back to do the resin topcoat to the driveway. Once again it was difficult to get in and out of the house, this time needing a ladder up from the lane. There are still jobs to be done, like the floor in the workshop, as well as reseeding the grass, installing a bat box and perches for the swallows, but otherwise our biggest project is complete and we're very pleased with the result. Thanks for watching.